Okay, so I'm going to talk you through seasons, and then I'll do another video on moon phases and tides. So let's talk about the seasons. Some of the things that you need to make sure that you understand is that revolution goes a long way. So this arrow is going to represent our revolution. And revolution takes 365.25 days or 1 year. Okay. Here we have rotation. Remember that rotation is like spinning. So rotation. And rotation takes 24 hours. Okay. Another word for rotation would be to spin. Alright? So rotation, when the Earth is rotating, it's rotating on an axis. Remember that this axis here is 23.5 degrees. And as we are rotating on that axis, the axis here always points toward the North Star. Remember, if you see in the picture, all of the axes are pointing in the same general direction. Remember that we are closer to the sun in the in the winter. And we are actually further away from the sun in the summertime. Alright, so let's go in and let's look at this. On our Earth, we have the northern hemisphere, which is always at the top. And then we have the southern hemisphere that is at the bottom. Okay. There is that dividing line right here, which is called the equator. Alright. And so we have seasons that occur in the northern hemisphere, seasons that occur in the southern hemisphere. And remember that they are opposites. Also, when we are looking at this and we're trying to determine what the season is for each of the different globes as they are pictured here, if the axis is pointed away from the sun, as it is here, then we would have winter because we're not receiving as much direct sunlight. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So here we have winter. So that means then in the southern hemisphere they have summer. You will always find winter and summer to be on the horizontal plane and fall and spring to be on the vertical plane. Alright? In every picture that you see. So then here, if winter is here in the northern hemisphere, that means this is summer because the axis is pointed towards the sun. So therefore, the southern hemisphere is in winter. If you look at these two globes, you can see that here in the northern hemisphere, which comes from here to here, it is receiving more of the direct sunlight. Okay? Here they are receiving more direct sunlight. In the summertime, remember that we find in the summertime in the southern hemisphere, this pole is pointed more directly at the sun, therefore it receives the 6 months of sunlight, while the northern hemisphere is pointed away and it is receiving the 6 months of darkness or winter. So if this is winter, we celebrate winter in December. Remember that December 21st through the 23rd, depending upon the calendar year, is called the winter solstice. And the winter solstice is the shortest day. In the summertime, we celebrate that in June. And June 21st to the 23rd, again, depending upon the calendar year, is when we have our summer solstice. And this means that we have the longest day, meaning the longest amount of daylight hours. Okay? If this is December for us, and we are rotating counterclockwise, revolving counterclockwise, then this would be March. About every 3 months that they are showing you. And in March, we go on spring break. So that means that the Northern Hemisphere is celebrating spring, while the Southern Hemisphere is in the fall. Again, we continue to revolve around the sun, and when we get to this one here, we know that then the Northern Hemisphere, after summer comes fall. And then in the Southern Hemisphere, they will have spring. Remember that when we are here and here at spring and fall, we have where the sun is hitting most directly at the equator and equally in the northern and the southern hemisphere. So we have what is called the equinox. And an equinox simply means equal amount of day and night. Okay? So we have those things that are occurring. Guys, the biggest thing for you to do when you get a test or get a worksheet or whatever with this, you are looking for this right here. Remember, we don't actually have a stick that sticks out of the earth, but they put it in the drawing so that you can see the orientation and see that it's actually tilted. And which way is it tilted? Without the point here, you wouldn't know for sure which way it's tilted. So therefore, look for this, the axis, and which way it's pointing, and that will help you significantly. Big thing, again, if the axis is pointing away from the sun, it's in summer. If it's pointing away from the sun, it's in winter. Sorry, guys. And if it's in the summer, it's pointing towards the sun. All right? Let's talk about this. Okay? Direct and indirect. Direct would be here. Direct lighting means that you're getting more of the concentration of the light. Therefore, you're getting more of the concentration of the heat. And so you get even distribution of your temperatures. As we go up here, and even in this area, if I was to pull this back here, notice that as my arrows get longer, I'm spreading out my light more, so it looks more like this. So we have what is called indirect. And indirect can bring cooler temperatures. It can bring less amounts of night and day, depending upon which way the earth is tilted. Okay? This here, remember, it shows us that it is revolving around the sun. And then here, again, we have that it is rotating. Rotation gives us day and night. Revolving gives us seasons. What else gives us seasons is this tilt. If the earth was not tilted on an axis, we would not have seasons. Because then as this turns around, every area would receive the same amount of sunlight all day, every day, all year long. But because it's tilted, we get different amounts of sunlight in different areas. So if we didn't have the tilt, we wouldn't have seasons. Remember that at the equator here, we talked about that they don't really experience seasons. They have pretty much the same temperatures all year round. It's actually fairly cool because of the amount of water that brings in the cooler temperatures to the land. One of the things to note, let me go back to this big picture, because you'll see it sometimes in the pictures, you'll be able to see this. Just because this one is lighter and this one is darker does not mean that they are getting different amounts of sunlight. They're getting the same amount. What you have to know is that from here to here, when I'm looking, if I'm down here and I'm looking this way, that means that this whole side is getting lit by the sun, but on the back it's going to be darker. And so the same thing is occurring here. What we are seeing is the sun is coming this way, so the other side of this would be lit while this side is dark. So don't be fooled by that on your test or quiz or worksheets or anything that you've been doing. Okay? All right, let's pause this one. How do I get to it?